Now, today I wanted to talk about overcoming fear of the unknown. It can be a challenging endeavour. I know that from personal experience and also from my clients. But I also know that it can be done. Now, as a family, we recently dealt with this as our two youngest children took to the stage for the very first time in their school musical. The long lead up and continual rehearsals and practice didn't stop both kids feeling that fear of the unknown, what it was going to be like to be on stage. So if you suffer from a fear of uncertainty, understanding what fear is and how it affects you can start you on the road to navigating it. Now, fear has been defined in several ways. However, the most basic definition of fear is an emotional response based on the fact that we're faced with something unfamiliar, foreign, uncertain, or there's impending danger. Now, when we experience fear, we have several psychological and physiological responses which take place all at the same time. Some of the psychological responses include feeling emotionally overwhelmed, having high levels of anxiety, and even feeling terrified. The physiological responses include a faster heart rate, shallow breathing, and those similar effects of our fight, flight, or freeze response, both of which our kids certainly experienced. Experiencing fear can greatly impact your view on life, your confidence levels, and even the potential that you have as an individual. Here's another example of a situation where a woman had the crippling fear that everything she did would result in failure. Let's call her Janice. Now, Janice was very successful in her career and personal life. It seemed that people were instantly drawn to her and her ideas. But on the inside, Janice was a mess. Every time she worked on a project, she would throw herself into it. In the end, she would ultimately succeed, but on the inside, she was always worried that she would fail or that her completed project just would not be good enough. Now, for the most part, Janice recognised the fact that her fear was irrational. It was mostly psychological, even though she felt those physiological responses. However, Janice grew up in a home of high expectations. She truly believed that regardless of what she did, it was never enough to meet her parents' expectations. The result was that she grew up to become a workaholic, often struggling to finish several things at once and leaving very little time for herself. The root of her fear of failure was grounded in her childhood. Her parents seemingly harboured unrealistic high expectations, and they would be obviously disappointed when their expectations weren't met. Now, once Janice realised this about her past, she was able to ease her own personal expectations and overcome and navigate through her fear. Here are 3 steps that you can use to help navigate and overcome your fear. The first, as in both these examples, is recognize your fear. By realizing that you're fearful, you're more likely to get to the bottom of what that fear is. Now, if you also have a fear of facing your fears, the best way to conquer this fear is to accept the truth behind what's causing you to experience limited happiness in your life. You might come to understand that you're afraid of failing or afraid of taking chances. You may even be fearful because you simply don't have confidence in yourself. Regardless of the issue at hand, it's important that you recognize your fear and attempt to define what it is that makes you terrified of whatever unknown is out there. The key here is not to dwell on the fear itself, but rather to understand precisely what it is you're worried about. Step number 2, determine the underlying root of your fears. So how can you identify the cause of your fears? With coaching, an insightful look at your life might reveal the answer, like in the case of Janice. By recognizing what causes your fears, it's more likely you can overcome them with great success, just like Janice did. Step 3 is facing your fears. Because once you've accepted your fear and identified the root cause, you're ready to conquer it. The best method to do that is face it head on. Make that decision to purposely tackle your fears. Perhaps it's by indulging yourself in activities that push you outside your comfort zone. For example, you could put yourself in a place where you're safe yet uncomfortable, or respectfully confront someone from your past. In the end, you'll find that you can successfully navigate your fears one by one. Overcoming fear of the unknown is a difficult undertaking. However, as you work through these 3 steps to unlock those chains that bind you to your fears, you will enjoy a freedom that you've never felt before. Much like my children did when they reveled in the applause and appreciation of their performance by the audience. So if this has been useful for you, I would love for you to share it with your friends or anyone else you think may find it useful. Because remember, you too can unleash your unique version of success.